Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to another new game playthrough on the channel. Today we're going to take on another beast of a game. We're going to debut Eldritch Horror on the channel. This is another game in the Arkham Horror files from Fantasy Flight Studios, where you control the familiar cast of characters trying to stop an ancient one from waking up and destroying the world. You'll also notice a lot of similarities to Arkham Horror 2nd Edition, and I'll link to part 1 of that video here. Unlike there, though, the goal here isn't necessarily closing gates or an all-out battle with the Ancient One, though those may happen on the way to the end of the game. This time, the goal is to solve mysteries and drive the Ancient One off. Most Ancient Ones require 3 mysteries to win the game. Today's adversary is one of the few that doesn't, but his mysteries, well, we'll see that for ourselves. With that, let's meet our adversary and go through the Prelude that we're playing with first. So today, we are actually taking on the Ancient One, Hastur, the Unspeakable One. We'll go through the card in a minute, but he is one of the ones that requires only 2 mysteries to solve to win the game. When Hastur awakens, flip this sheet and resolve the Hastur Awakens effect on the back. Now, I do have a house rule, before I go too much further on this, I do have a house rule on the Ancient One waking up, where if the game looks salvageable, I'll continue with it, but if it doesn't when the Ancient One flips over, then we'll just take it as a loss and I'll just start cleaning up. Then this symbol we're going to see a lot of is a Reckoning, so that'll come up during the Mythos Phase. I'll go through that more in detail when we get to the Mythos Phase. But the Reckoning for the Ancient One, investigators as a group lose sanity equal to the number of gates on the board unless the lead investigator gains a blight condition, which will be a bad condition, something we'll have to deal with in the course of the game. Far from Earth, and then the flavor text. Far from Earth, beneath the star of Aldebaran, the Unspeakable One sleeps imprisoned within the core of one of the dark stars of the Hyades. Trapped there in a war long forgotten, he dreams of escaping to exact his terrible skill upon the cosmos. We start off with a Doom of 11, which we'll see when we take a look at the board. Cultists are modified. So the combat checks are a little bit different in Eldritch. So you'll actually fight them during the encounter phase instead of during the movement phase like you did in 2nd edition. So as you can see, the cultists, you start off with your similar will check. There'll be a modifier on there. In this case, the cultists are straight will. 1 sanity to not take sanity damage. That's another way things are different, because you will notice later on that these numbers will be higher than 1 or 2. In 2nd edition on a combat or horror check, you would only need to get 1 success to consider the check passed. Now, in Eldritch, that would consider the check passed, but you are sensitive to the number of successes as well. So if you get less than the number of successes you need, you take the difference in sanity or damage, depending. Then the strength -1 on the combat check, you need 1 success to not lose health. The number in green is the toughness to kill the monster. In this case, the cultists are 1 toughness. Then on a Reckoning as well, the cultist summons a Bayaki. A Bayaki monster ambushes an investigator on this space or an adjacent space. And as part of setup, we had to set aside 1 Bayaki monster and all special encounters. These are directions for how the Mythos deck is built, and we'll see that in more detail as we go through the game. So in stage 1, we start off with 2 yellow cards and 2 blue cards. The yellow cards are essentially the events. The blue cards are rumors, and we get both of them in stage 1, which can be very dangerous. Then in stage 2, we start getting into the green cards, which are further events, but they can also have ongoing effects. So in stage 2, we get 2 of those, and then 3 more yellow cards, which have the Reckonings on them again. Stage 3 gives us 3 greens and 5 yellows, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. Now let's take a quick look at our Prelude. We're going with Litany of Secrets. It is so obvious now, the interconnection of all things. It lies in plain sight in our most treasured text, in our forgotten temples, in etchings on cavern walls. All that remains now is to connect the dots. During Step 7 of Setup, separate and place decks, shuffle all Expedition Encounter decks together regardless of card back and split them into 2 decks. Place an active Expedition token on each space that corresponds to the illustration on the back of the top card of an Expedition Encounter deck. If the top card of either Expedition Encounter deck changes for any reason, Move the active expedition tokens to the appropriate spaces. During the encounter phase, an investigator on a space containing an active expedition token may encounter it by drawing and resolving the top card of the corresponding expedition encounter deck. Any effect that refers to the expedition encounter deck affects both decks. Any effect that refers to the active expedition space affects both spaces that contain an active expedition token. Now, I've done all of that setup off camera already. I've split the deck in two. I've got both of our starting active expeditions out. We'll see where they are at when we zoom out to take a look at the entire board. But that's what we're up against today. Now let's meet our heroes, trying to stop Hastur. So here's our first investigator today, Jenny Barnes, the Dilettante. She starts off with 7 health and 5 sanity. Pretty good stat line for the most part. 1 lore, which hopefully will not hamper us too much. 4 influence, 2 observation, 3 strength, and 3 will. Her component action, it might be a little hard to read, but you or another investigator on a city space may perform an acquire assets action and gain +2 influence during this action. And then once per her passive ability, once per round, when you or another investigator gains a debt condition, that investigator may discard this condition. Now, I'm going to be using that ability a lot in this game. So I've come up with a little bit of shorthand for that. If you hear me talk about a debt wipe, this is the ability I'm talking about. So yeah, I just want to clarify, in case you hear debt wipe, you're not wondering what I'm talking about. But anyway, Jenny's starting possessions, which are on the back when she has flavor text. My sister was taken. I will pay any amount to save her. As you might remember from the Dream Eaters campaign back in the spring, this manifested in her signature weakness, searching for Izzy. But anyway, I'm getting off track. So for her starting possessions, Jenny starts off with 2 assets. First, she starts off with fine jewelry. You may add 1 to the result of 1 die when performing an influence test during an acquire assets action. So that'll be handy to help us start ripping through the reserve like nobody's business. She also starts off with a 25 automatic. Item weapon. Roll 1 additional die when resolving a strength test during a combat encounter. Now, another point I should probably clarify from 2nd edition. In 2nd edition, you could use up to 2 hands worth of items during encounters. Here, you only get the highest of the bonus. So, say you have a +1 and a +4. You'd only be able to use the +4 on your combat checks. But if you have anything that says roll additional dice, those effects will stack freely. So if you have like a +4, for instance, and then you have a roll 1 additional die, you'll effectively get a +5 on the check, but it's worded slightly differently. Then she also starts off with a ship ticket. Now, ship tickets you can use to move around the board faster. So as one of your actions, you have a travel action. You can move 1 space for free, and then if you end up somewhere that has a ship path connected to it, you can then spend the ship ticket for an additional move along a sea path. So that's just how that works. Train tickets will work similar, but we'll see that more when we zoom out to the board. But last thing we have to go through here is Jenny's personal story. As you probably guessed by the flavor text, her personal goal is search for Isabel. Izzy is a smart girl. She's okay. At least, that's what you keep telling yourself. Still, you have to find her, and fast. When you gain this card, place 3 random clues face up on this card. After resolving an encounter on one of those spaces, discard that clue. Then, if there are no clues on this card, discard this card and gain the Isabel reward. When Doom advances to 6 or lower, discard this card and gain the Too Late consequence. So let's go find my bag and we'll get our 3 clues for that. Now, you can probably hear the rattling in the background. I'm actually using, if you remember an unboxing video I did a couple months ago, I ordered some clues from an Etsy store called By Your Command. I'll provide the link to their Etsy store in the description box down below. But I like these clues. These are a very durable plastic that will survive, that will stand up to a lot of abuse. The one gripe I had with those clues is that they have their red text on a green background. It's going to be a problem for people who are red-green colorblind, which I'm not. I was meaning to replace them, but I never did. And I'm probably going to before I play this game again on the channel. But anyway, let's take a look at Jenny's 3 clues and see where she's going to be going. So we get our 3 clues. All right. Let's see where Jenny's going. All right, first clue up. Space 15, okay. And then I'll show you where these clues are all going to be taking her when we zoom out to the board, when we go take a look at the board. Second clue up. Space 20. And then the last clue up. Space 5. Okay. So those are the 3 clues for Jenny's personal story. And I've already got, as you can see, I've also got her health set on my dashboards over here. The dashboards are actually from another Etsy shop called Underbites. I will provide a link to their Etsy store in the description box down below. Anyway, that will do it for Jenny. Now let's go meet our second investigator. Here's our second investigator in today's game, Carolyn Fern, the Psychologist. She was featured in our Circle Undone campaign that we had to wrap early because her partner Agnes got too roughed up to continue. But let's take a look at Carolyn Fern, the Psychologist. I'll zoom out a little bit here. There we go. I don't need to be that far. 5 health and 7 sanity. Pretty decent stat line, again. 2 lore, 3 influence, 2 observation, 2 strength, 4 will. As an action, you or another investigator on your space may discard 1 madness condition and or perform a rest action. And then her passive, when you or another investigator on your space performs a rest action, that investigator may recover 1 additional sanity. Then flavor text, the mad deserve peace of mind, not death of the spirit. So mildly out there, but anyway. We'll go through her assets. She's got a common asset and a unique asset. Her common asset first is the Dream Diary. Item Tome. Gain +1 lore during otherworld encounters. When you perform a rest action, spawn 1 clue. So as we use her component, as we either use regular rests or her component action, we can get clues on the board like crazy. And then her unique asset, she starts off with Death 13. Trinket Tarot. Whenever a mystery is solved, retreat doom by 1, which could come in handy when you start with lower doom totals. And then Carolyn's personal story. Final analysis. You look deeper into Malachi's mind, refusing to let it lie. Once per round, when another investigator on your space performs a rest action, spawn 1 clue. Then, if there is a total number of clues in investigator's possession and or on the game board equal to or greater than twice the number of investigators, discard this card and gain the missing link reward. Twice the number of investigators would actually be 8 clues. When another investigator is defeated with 0 sanity, discard this card and gain the growing unrest consequence. So we definitely need to protect our sanity from that personal story fail. Anyway, that will do it for Carolyn. Now let's go meet our third investigator. Here's our third investigator in the game, Zoe Samaras, the chef. 5 health and 7 sanity. 3 lore, 2 influence, 1 observation, 3 strength, 4 will. One thing this team is not strong at is observation. Hopefully that won't come back to bite us. But anyway, her component action, if you have fewer than 2 task assets, gain a task unique asset. And then her passive, if you have not lost sanity during a combat encounter, roll 2 additional dice when resolving the strength test during that encounter. Flavor text, God has spoken. I will do his work without hesitation. So based on that, we're going to be looking to get Zoe a weapon just as fast as we can. But let's take a look at her personal story as well. In his name, no mission is too great for the loyal. No evil will escape the judgment of the righteous. not on your watch. When you flip a task unique asset, place one Eldritch token on this card. Then, if there are 3 or more Eldritch tokens on this card, discard this card and gain the Crusade reward. At the end of the encounter phase, if there are 5 or more gates on the game board, discard this card and gain the Gone Astray consequence. So we need to get her a weapon, but we also need to keep her tasks. We need to keep her tasks moving as well. Anyway, that will do it for Zoe. Now let's go meet our last investigator. Here's our last investigator for today, Daisy Walker, the librarian. 4 lore, 3 influence, 2 observation, 1 strength, 3 will. So our influence is definitely mostly strong, except for Zoe, who's got a suspect influence. Daisy will probably end up being our spellcaster by default. 5 health, 7 sanity, so Jenny's the only one with 7 and 5. Her action. If you're on a city space, test observation, which with an observation of 2 is not going to be great, but if you pass, gain 1 tome asset from the reserve or 1 random tome asset from the deck. When you perform a rest action, you may perform 1 additional action on a ritual or tome possession you have. I know of books so powerful they may rewrite reality. Oh joy. And then I forgot to go through Zoe's starting possessions. Zoe starts off with a Holy Cross. Gain +2 will during combat encounters. So making it likely that she doesn't lose any sanity during the encounter to be able to roll additional dice. But anyway, coming back to Daisy. Now we'll go through Daisy's starting possessions. So Daisy starts off with an old journal, unique asset. Item tome. Action, test observation. If you pass, you discover information that may prove useful to your cause. Flip this card. Now, some of these cards are double-sided, and you generally don't flip them until you're instructed to by a game effect. But anyway, she also starts off with a spell. Arcane Insight. Choose an investigator, choose yourself, or as an action, choose yourself or another investigator on any space and test lore -2. Roll 1 additional die for each tome possession you have. If you pass, that investigator gains 1 clue, then flip this card. So there's another card that we'll need to flip. But anyway, let's take a look at Daisy's personal story. Unknown secrets. When one of the library's books goes missing, you are always the one to track it down. In this case, however, it appears that the book is not in the hands of a thief, or not in the hands of a forgetful student, but the hands of a thief. But why would someone go to such lengths to have it? After performing a rest action, you may spend 5 clues and discard this card to gain the missing book reward. When you have only 1 health or 1 sanity, discard this card and gain the anterograde amnesia consequence. Okay. Alright, that's everybody's setup. Now we'll move back up top to take a quick look at the board and finish setup for today's game. Alright, so here's our first look at the board. As you can see, rather than it being just the city of Arkham, it's actually a worldwide adventure in this case. So we'll take a quick look at a few of the relevant notes to see. Up at the top of the board, you can see Doom at 11, which is where it starts for Hastur. I also have a reminder icon. This is actually something you'd use for a rumor, but I have that on 6 Doom just because we do have Jenny, who is sensitive to Doom advancing to 6 or lower. So that's a reminder that, hey, something happens at 6 Doom. Then we have the Omen track up over here where we start on the green comet. We also have our 2 expeditions. This game, they're starting off with the Himalayas and Tokyo. So I've got the decks off camera. We'll probably see those encounters before too long. Anyway, looking at our starting investigators, Jenny starts off at Space 8 over here in the Atlantic, right by Arkham. Carolyn and Zoe both start in Rome, and Daisy starts up in Istanbul. There's a joke there that other people will make, but I will swallow it here. Alright, place the Omen. Then we'll take a look at our first reserve. So, for our first reserve, we'll take a look at the Bayaki as well that I had to set aside as part of Hastur's setup. But our first asset in the reserve is an Ankh. Gain +2 lore when resolving spell effects. gain +2 will when resolving combat encounters. That could be handy to get over to either Daisy or Zoe could have a case for that, honestly. Alright, next up. A private investigator. The Ankh costs 3 successes. This costs 2. Gain +1 observation. You may reroll 1 die when making an observation test. With our team as bad as observation as that is, that's going to be a fight for everybody. That's something I could easily pass to anybody. Next up, we have a Scribe's Journal. Item Tome. Effects can't cause you to discard your clues or spells unless you choose to. That's a 1 cost, so that could be another tome that we move over to Daisy. And we have... Does not want to focus for me. There we go. Map of the Ley Lines. Item Tome. Gain +1 lore and +1 will. Once per round, you may reroll 1 die when resolving a test during an Otherworld encounter. Ooh. That could be good for whoever our gate closer ends up being, either Carolyn or... Actually, that could be good for Daisy, too, to boost her tome count. But, anyway. We'll take a quick look at where Jenny's clues are taking us on her personal story before we continue with setup. So Space 5 is actually up here over by Chicago, not too far from Arkham. Space 15 is down here in South Africa. And then in Space 20, I'll get the reference card out of the way here. Space 20 is actually down here in what we would consider as probably being Jakarta, it looks like, in Indonesia. No, it might be a little far south for Indonesia, but I guess that's the best I can do right now looking at Southeast Asia. Admittedly, my geography is not the best on that front, but anyway. So that will do it for that. Now we'll get our first gate. So we take the top gate from the gate stack. We have Atlantis, Space 8. Good thing I was planning on moving Jenny right away. And then we need a monster to go with it. Alright, so our first monster that we get... We get a cultist right away. So there might be a temptation to just try to kill this right away in case we get a reckoning right away, but that'll be something to think about. Jenny's space right now is very crowded. Alright, so we've placed the active expedition tokens already. Now we spawn clues equal to the number on the reference card, which in this case is 2. So we'll get our first clues out. Alright, so we've got our first 2 clues. So first up, we have a clue going to the Amazon, which is down here in South Africa, which will be another type of encounter that we can have. We also have Space 4, which is up in the Yukon, up in the wilderness of Canada. Okay, then we have... Okay, now we get our first mystery card out. So, we'll grab the mysteries here, give them a quick shuffle. And then a cut. And the top one will be our first mystery for the game. So our first mystery that we have is... He who is not to be named. The shadow of madness permeates every avenue of reality as Hastur, the unspeakable one, stirs. His walls writhe, his walls... He waits within his dark prison, yearning to bring the sprawling, corrupt cities of humanity under his rule. When this card enters play, move each clue on the game board to the nearest city space. After an investigator resolves a research encounter, he may spend any number of clues he gained from that encounter and place those clues on this card. At the end of the Mythos phase, if there are clues on this card equal to twice the investigators, solve this mystery. So once again, we need 8 clues on the mystery. So now we have to move each clue to the nearest city space. So the one on space 4 will move to space 5, and then the one in the Amazon will move to space 7. Now, as long as they're equidistant, as long as you have 2 equidistant paths to get to a location, you get to pick. So that's our first mystery in play. We need to get clues on the board in a hurry. So I think our first investigator for the round will probably be Jenny, and we'll move right down to the board. So here we are with Jenny. I'll give her a sequence die with the 1 and a really cool first player token. I'm going to use this Cthulhu Flux launch token as a first player token as well. The reason these dice aren't signifying anything in particular. They're just sequence dice to help me when I get into the encounter phase so I can keep my order straight. But anyway, action 1, Jenny's going to leave all this chaos behind and move to Arkham. And then for action 2, she's going to use her component action on herself. So we're going to grab 6 dice. There are my cool dice. Put those in the dice cup. Bring the dice tower. We're going to have to bring it in pieces, but we'll bring it into shot. I think I can put it down here. Perfect. All right, 6 dice. And we had 1 fall out. Oh my. I'm already liking what I see, though. Oh my. Okay, that's actually very, very good. Now, unfortunately, looking at her fine jewelry, the only die that isn't a success is actually the 3. So even if I add 1 to that, it would only make it a 4. And since Jenny's not blessed, that wouldn't give us any extra successes. So we do have 5 successes to work with. So let's bring those 5 successes down to the reserve. Unfortunately, 5 successes, even plus the debt wipe, would not let me clear the reserve, but it could let me do some serious damage to it. So, I think in this case, this is tempting. It actually is tempting to take the debt wipe and just rip through the reserve, or get some really powerful stuff. But I think what we do right now is, you know what? Actually, I think we do take the debt wipe here. Actually, no, we don't. We don't take the debt wipe here. I think what we grab, though, is we grab the Ankh for 3 and the ally for 2. So we'll give her +1 observation and a reroll on an observation test, and +2 lore during spell effects, and +2 will for combat effects. But I definitely would like to see some more powerful weapons come out. I like being able to defend myself when I can. So now we need 2 new assets for the reserve. So first up, we'll add News Report. As a service, when you gain this card, immediately spawn 3 clues, then discard this card. That's probably something we're going to need if we need clues in a hurry. And Mineralogy Research Task. After resolving a general encounter or an expedition encounter on a wilderness location, you may examine the area's soil. Observation. If you pass, gain 2 clues and discard this card. Anyway, the asset just got a lot cheaper, but that will do it for Jenny. Our second investigator for this round, I think it'll be Daisy, actually. So let's get back down to the board. We will give Daisy the 2 die on the sequence dice. There we go. So Daisy is our second investigator this round. For For action 1, she will move to space 17, and then she's going to try to acquire assets as well. Here we might use the debt wipe. I haven't decided yet. I've got to see what kind of roll I get first. So we'll take these 6s. One thing I learned from one of my favorite YouTubers, always reroll your 6s. So let's actually bring the dice tower back into shot. I'll move that right there. Okay. That'll let me at least see everything that's going on. So Daisy trying to acquire assets. And we get 2 successes, which is actually, I will have to think about that, but anyway, 2 successes, we'll move back down to the reserve once again. 2 successes will let us do a little bit more damage to the reserve. So, for 1 success, I'll grab the Scribe's Journal, so now effects can't make me discard my clues or spells unless I let them. And then with our second success, I'm actually going to grab the news report. So we'll spawn 3 clues and then discard this card. So, go back to our clue bag and get 3 more clues out. I'll get the dice tower off the board. Alright. Get our 3 clues out. And I think we got 3 there. Okay. Alright, so our first clue up is turning Space 8 into a very chaotic space on the board. So we'll hide that there in the mess, although the cultist will be guarding that. Second clue. Space 19, which is over here in Vladivostok, Russia. The extreme eastern edge right near the border with Japan. And then clue 3. Space 17, which is right on top of Daisy, actually. So that could actually give her something to do on the encounter phase. Then we'll discard the news report, and we need 2 new assets for the reserve. First up, research student. As 1 cost to acquire, is an ally. As an action, roll 1 die. On a 5 or a 6, gain 1 clue. On a 1, discard the nearest clue on the game board. This would probably be something to try to get rid of in a hurry. And then asset 2, handcuffs. 2 costs to acquire. Before resolving the strength test during a combat encounter, you may spend 1 focus to defeat that monster if it has 2 toughness or less. Okay. Alright, so we've replaced the reserve. That will do it for Daisy. Our third investigator will be Zoe, actually. So let's go back down to Rome. Alright, so we'll give Zoe the 3 and Carolyn the 4 by process of elimination. So Zoe is actually going to use her component action to get a task unique asset. So Zoe's task that she gets, I'll come over to my spreadsheet. Alright, here we go, calculate now. Zoe gets Bury Them Deep. Alright, I've also got a binder off camera where I keep everything. So, where are my tasks? Okay. And Bury Them Deep. Okay. There we go. Okay. I was just doing a little bit of shuffling and getting the one I want to give Zoe off camera. Alright. This will ever zoom. There we go. Bury Them Deep. Unique asset. Task. When a non-epic monster is defeated or discarded, you may spend 1 focus to place that monster on this card, then you may flip this card. Generally, I don't use task assets that much, but the way they work is that you charge them up And then if you can flip them at the right time, get something really powerful out of it. Then for action 2, Zoe is going to gain a focus. A focus token will let you reroll a die on any skill check. It won't let you reroll something like a Dark Pact or a die on other conditions or strength on other condition checks, and you can only have up to 2 of those per turn. Or you can only have up to 2 of those per investigator. Same thing with the ship tickets, with the travel tickets. You can only have up to 2 in any combination of those. Alright, that's it for Zoe. Carolyn, for action 1, she's also going to get a focus. There we go. And then she's going to try to acquire assets as well, so we can keep working through the reserve. Bring the dice tower back in shot. We have our 3 dice. We have 1 success, which might let us do some stuff down at the reserve, but let's go down and take a look. Alright, so we have 1 success to work with. Now, at this point of the turn, it's basically over, where you can probably... There are some encounters that will make you take debt conditions, but we're probably clear on that front. So, I'm going to actually use the debt wipe here to continue working through the reserve. So now I have 3 successes. The way I think you're supposed to do that, rules as written, is you're actually supposed to take the condition and then essentially shuffle it right back in. I'm going to shortcut that by not taking the condition at all. So I'm going to grab the mineralogy research for 1, which will let me examine the soil for observation after a general or expedition encounter on a wilderness space. And then for the other 2, I'll grab the handcuffs. So I can just spend a focus to defeat a monster if it's got toughness 2 or less. And then we need 2 more reserves or 2 more assets in the reserve. So first up, we get an 18 Derringer, Trinket Weapon. You may add 1 to the result of 1 die when resolving a strength test during combat encounters. So that's one to acquire. And Museum Curator. You may, as an ally for 3, you may reroll 1 die when resolving a test during an expedition encounter or a Mystic Ruins encounter. When you gain this card from the deck or reserve, gain 1 relic unique asset. Okay. Anyway, that will do it for Carolyn. Now we'll move into the encounter phase, and first up we'll go say hello to Jenny and Arkham. Hello, Jenny. Now, on a namespace like Arkham, I'll tip the gate and the cultist down for a second so you can see. But if you notice under the named city spaces, you have extra text down there. It'll give you a general idea, and this wrap is not cooperating with me, but it'll give you a general idea of what you can expect from the encounter there. In our case, in Arkham, the idea, and it's hard to read because I can't really zoom in on the board too much, is you might be able to gain incantation spells. But you can make a choice. You can either encounter the city, any token there, you can either encounter your location, any token there, or just have a generic encounter. In this case, Jenny is going to encounter Arkham. So we'll grab our card. Wait for it to focus. Alright. And Arkham. In the restricted section of Miskatonic University's library, you study an esoteric tome. Gain 1 incantation spell. Okay, that'll probably be something I try to move over to somebody else, but we get an incantation spell. I'll come over to my spreadsheet, and we get Storm of Spirits. So we'll come back over to my binder. Come on. All right. Give these a shuffle. And a cut. And we'll take the one off the bottom. Storm of Spirits. Spell incantation. When resolving a combat encounter, you may resolve a lore test in place of the strength test using the same test modifier. If you do, flip this card. Yeah, that's something that's probably going to get moved over to Daisy as fast as I can get it over to her. Either Daisy or Zoe, actually. Probably Daisy, honestly. I could use a way to help her defend herself. But, anyway, there was more on the card than that. You try to decode a note written in the margin. Test lore. Oh boy. Jenny has got a 1 lore, so I will grab the 6, and then hope that my record of Jenny and 1 lore tests is riding with me today. Clearly, it is not. If you fail, the words put strange visions into your mind. Gain a hallucinations condition. Oh joy! So now we have to go get a hallucinations condition. Okay. And there's our hallucinations condition. When you perform a rest action, you may roll 1 die. On a 5 or a 6, discard this card. Action, test Reckoning, test will. If you fail, flip this card. Oh joy. Anyway, that will do it for Jenny. Now we'll move down to Daisy, over in what looks to be New Delhi, India. We're down here with Daisy next. Until Carolyn managed to get the news report, I was going to be stuck having a generic city encounter with Daisy, but instead, she gets to have a research encounter. So she'll be encountering the clue. Which means we'll draw one of these, and we'll read the part for city. The Silver Twilight Lodge wants to help you quell the epidemic of insanity, but does not yet trust you enough to reveal its secrets. Influence -1, so 2 dice. Oh joy. Daisy's influence is not great, but let's see what we can do here. We can manage to pass the encounter, which is very nice. All right. If you pass, choose 1. Trade information with the Lodge to gain this clue and 1 additional clue, or form a deeper trust to gain a promise of power condition. I think we're going to get this clue and 1 additional clue, both of which are going up on the mystery. So we've got the 1 clue, and we'll pull another clue out. There we are. Both of which are going up on the mystery. So that's our first 2 clues on the mystery, and remember, we need 8. So anyway, that will do it for Daisy. Now let's move down to Zoe and Carolyn, who are both in Rome. Zoe and Carolyn are both in Rome. They'll both be encountering Rome. Zoe is up first. Zoe will... one too many. Zoe gets... The Vatican Library is so vast. You ask a librarian for a recommendation, influence. Which seems like a laugh, but let's remember that Daisy did just pass a 2 influence test. Zoe's influence is not the best, but she does have a focus. Which I will use to re-roll. And still fail. Alright, so in the case of Rome, nothing bad happens, so we just kind of dodge a bullet on that one. Sometimes no bad stuff is the best thing you can ask for in these games. Now let's take a look at Carolyn's encounter. Count Vito Fantari fortifies your spirit with fine dining and good company. Improve will. Okay. That will work. So, we will get our... Here we go. So we'll get a will improvement, and we'll put that on Carolyn. But of course... But wait, there's more. He insists that you relax with him on his luxurious yacht, but you politely decline. Influence -1. Oh, cute. Alright. And Carolyn passes. So, Carolyn avoids bad stuff. Again, best that you can hope for sometimes in this game, although the improving will would have been a very good thing for us. So anyway, that will do it for Carolyn. That will do it for the encounter phase. Now let's move back up top for the Mythos phase. The Mythos Phase, aka the phase where bad things happen to good people. So let's grab a card from the Deck of Doom and see what we've got. Now, you'll read these cards from top to bottom. So we'll start off with the symbols, which means we spawn 2 clues. Okay, so our first clue will go to Istanbul and Space 3 down here in the Pacific off the border with Buenos Aires. And then we have our first rumor card, which is not something I want to see this early, but given Hastur, kind of the nature of the beast. So we'll get a rumor token for Antarctica and 3 Eldritch tokens, which is what the tentacle symbol with the number means. So we'll get another one of these, and we'll put that on Antarctica. I'll get the 3 Eldritch tokens here. 1, 2, 3. I'll keep those off camera for the time being, but astronomers in the southern hemisphere have begun to see radical changes in the stars. Constellations have become completely unrecognizable. Reports from Antarctica describe seeing a second moon. Transported to the Hyades. Ongoing rumor. Very thematic with Hastur. As an encounter, an investigator on Antarctica may search for the herds of Bayaki that inhabit the place. Observation -1. If he passes, if she passes, she may spend clues equal to half the investigators to solve this rumor, which is also known as 2. When there are no Eldritch tokens on this card, each investigator loses 2 health and 2 sanity, impairs 1 skill of their choice, and gains 1 injury condition, 1 madness condition, and 1 bane condition, then solve this rumor. On a reckoning, discard 1 Eldritch token from this card. We need to get rid of that as fast as we can. Unfortunately, we're very drained on clues right now because we need clues not only for the mystery, but we need clues for this as well, and our observation isn't great, really. So, anyway, that will do it for the Mythos phase. We're back to the investigation phase now, and I think our first player... I think we'll leave it with Jenny, actually. So we'll move back down to Arkham. Aside from the assets we're getting and where we're going to run Jenny's last turn back. So she's going to move to space 5, which is actually her first encounter, going to be her first encounter on her personal story. And then for her second action, once again, we're going to use the component action on herself. So we'll give her 6 dice. I'll start rolling these. I've got the dice tower and shot. Alright, similar to last time, we aren't able to add anything to make it a success. We get 4 successes, so we'll bring those down to the reserve. The debt wipe would bring us up to 6 successes, which would not be a terrible idea. Whether I use it to get the map of the ley line and keep ripping through the reserve, whether I use it to keep ripping through the reserve. But I don't think we really need to do that right now. So I think we're just going to use her 4 successes to grab the 18 Derringer to let her add 1 to the result of a die during a combat check, during a strength test during combat, and then the museum curator, which will give her a relic unique asset. So we'll grab one of our stacks of unique assets. Here we go. Okay, sorry, I was getting something going off camera. So we'll grab one of our stacks and we'll draw from the bottom until we get a relic. So we'll let that focus, and hey, look at that, that didn't take long. Alright. Stone Tablet, unique asset, item relic. When you perform a rest action, you may attempt to decipher the carvings on the tablet, lore -1. If you pass, flip this card. Fortunately, in this game, unlike in 2nd edition, you always roll a minimum of 1 die. Whereas in 2nd edition, if you end up getting a 0 on a skill during a skill check, you would just automatically fail it. So the museum curator came with a stone tablet, but we also need 2 new assets for the reserve. So first up, we have kerosene. Item, 1 cost to acquire. You may discard this card to gain +5 strength during a combat encounter. And a protective amulet. Gain +1 will during combat encounters. Alright, so the reserve is nice and cheap right now. But anyway, that will do it for Jenny. Our second player will actually be, once again, I think it'll be Daisy, and we'll go down to the board. Daisy's turn is actually going to be relatively quick. So she's going to get a focus, because having a focus is always a good thing to have. There we go. And then she's going to move up to the Himalayas, so we'll get to see our first expedition encounter of the game. That will do it for Daisy, nice and short turn. And now we'll go back to Rome for Zoe and Carolyn, and I think, actually this time, we're going to switch the order for Carolyn and Zoe. So Carolyn will be next. I'm actually zoomed out a little bit here because I'm planning on splitting Carolyn and Zoe up this round. So for action 1, Carolyn is actually going to rest this round. And I'm not resting because I need to recover. I'm resting so I can spawn clues. So I'm going to spawn another clue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, this will work. So we're going to move this. So we're going to spawn this clue. At space 7. So now we've got 2 clues there because we had one we had to move when the mystery was spawned. And then for a component action, Carolyn is actually going to let Zoe rest. Which again, will not spawn a clue on the board, which actually, no, that won't let her recover because she's already at full strength, but it will spawn another clue on the board. And there's a more important thing there's a more important reason I'm doing this, and I'll explain that in a second. Alright, so this clue is going to end up at Space 13, deep in the Arctic Circle. Anyway, I can probably hear you in the comments right now saying, Phoenix Knight, everybody's at full strength right now. Why are you spawning more clues? Why are you spawning clues on the board? Well, number one, the mystery needs them. Number two, however, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I thought I had one more clue on the board. Let me check this again. 1, 2, 3. Oh no, it's hidden. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Carolyn needed clues as well, because now she has cleared her personal story. So, as we recall, final analysis. Once per round, when another investigator on your space performs a rest action, which Carolyn's component action let Zoe perform a rest action, spawn one clue. Then, if there's a total number of clues in investigator's possessions and or on the game board equal to or greater than twice the investigator's, which we have 8 clues, I just counted them out, discard this card and gain the missing link reward. So we'll give Carolyn the missing link reward, and we'll give her missing link reward. When you gain this card, improve lore and will. Once per round, when you or another investigator on your space performs a rest action, gain 1 clue. Okay, so the +1 on... So we'll take a look at our improvement tokens. We already had a +1 from Carolyn's Rome encounter earlier on will. So that will become a +2. And then we'll add a +1 to Carolyn's lore. So now she's at a 3 lore, 6 will. I wouldn't mind getting her a decent weapon so I can potentially send her monster hunting. But that will do it for Carolyn. Zoe is going to get a focus. Because once again, focus is a good thing to have. And then she's going to move to Istanbul. Mostly so we can try to keep the mystery moving. That will do it for the encounter or for the action phase. Now let's go into the encounter phase, and we'll start with Jenny over in Chicago. Alright, we're back to Jenny in the encounter phase. She's going to have a research encounter, since there's a clue right there. So, let's have a look at a research encounter for Jenny. City space. You cash in favors to gain an audience with a man claiming to have been to Carcosa and back. Influence. Well, it's a good thing Jenny's good at this influence thing, so let's see what we can do with it. We get 4 dice. And we pass with flying colors. If you pass, he teaches you a little of what he has learned. Gain this clue or gain 1 talent condition. I won't bother with the fail. We are going to gain the clue, and we're going to put it right up on the mystery, which brings us up to 3 clues on the mystery. And remember, we need 8. So anyway, that will do it for Jenny. Now let's move over to Daisy in the Himalayas. Blondie's going on an expedition to the Himalayas. So let's see what we've got here. The Order of Death's Head has arranged for a mass sacrifice of monks to call forth the Augurs of Rasa. You attack the Order's soldiers to free their prisoners. Strength. Ick. Daisy has got a highly disgusting strength of 1. This is going to be a problem. A 4, and I think we'll spend the focus to re-roll that. And we managed to fail that even worse. So the way these expedition encounters work, I'll go into the next part of it here, is they're a multi-part encounter. So you'll have an initial test up top, then you'll have a pass effect in the middle, and then you have the fail encounter, which we're going to. The fight leaves you wounded. Gain a leg injury condition. Gross. Okay, we find... Ah, here we go. Leg injury. Alright, so... So we'll give these a quick shuffle and a cut. And there's Daisy's leg injury. When you perform a rest action, you may roll 1 die. On a 5 or a 6, discard this card. Reckoning tests strength. If you fail, flip this card. Let me translate that Reckoning for you with Daisy. On a Reckoning, flip this card. Because that's what a strength test basically amounts to for Daisy, is a 1 strength test. But, and there's more. The commander of the order continues chanting, and the sound unnerves you. Will -1. Daisy, without getting into why, you need to pass this. You probably saw on the card as I held it up, but again, you need to pass this badly. And we don't. That's going to be a problem. If you fail, the commander hexes you. Gain a cursed condition. Yuck, yuck, yuck. So here are our cursed conditions. Give these a shuffle. And a cut. And we'll take from the bottom, and there's Daisy's cursed condition. Only 6s count as successes on your test. If you would gain another cursed condition, flip this card instead. If you would gain a blessed condition, discard this card instead. On a Reckoning, roll 1 die. On a 4, 5, or 6, discard this card. Yikes. So now Daisy's also rolling red dice. The one consolation I have on that, though, is that the expedition for that deck is staying on the Himalayas, so we might stay there next turn. But anyway, that will do it for Daisy. Now let's go up to Carolyn in Rome. Alright, so we've got the dice tower here between both Carolyn and Zoe because I was able to get them both in shot. But Carolyn is going to be up first. She's going to be having her Rome encounter first. Actually, Zoe is not going to be encountering Rome this turn. And I did forget, before I go any further, I have one of the clues on Jenny's personal story was for space 5. So, she actually gets to discard that toward her personal story. So, coming back to Carolyn, we go into Rome. A group of black shirts are interrogating an old priest, and you try to intervene. Influence. Carolyn's influence is not completely sucktacular at 3. So let's have this, Carolyn. Nicely done, Carolyn. I see a 5 and a 6 in there. It's kind of hard to see, but they are there. Anyway. If you pass, they let the priest go, and he is eternally grateful. Gain a blessed condition. Cool. So you've probably heard, so you saw what a cursed condition is earlier when Daisy got one. Based on that, you can probably guess what a blessed is with Carolyn, but we'll go through it here in a second anyway. A shuffle and a cut. And there's Carolyn's blessed condition. Blessed. Boon. 4, 5s, and 6s count as successes on your tests. If you would gain another blessed condition, flip this card instead. If you would gain a cursed condition, discard this card instead. Reckoning, roll 1 die. On a 1 or a 2, discard this card. So blessed and cursed are a lot easier to get rid of here than they were in 2nd edition. But that will do it for... Oh, I gave that to Jenny. That should be with Carolyn. Anyway, Zoe will actually be encountering the clue rather than Istanbul. Tempting to try to improve her influence, but we need to keep the clues flowing in. So let's take a look. Alright, we get another city space. You negotiate with the police chief to release an ex-convict from the county jail. Influence. Oh, joy, Zoe. So we'll take these 2 successes because her influence is pretty rubbish. We do have focus if we need it, and we might. Never mind, we don't need it. We do pass. If you pass, he agrees, and the grateful inmate sets about making things right. Gain 1 random ally asset from the deck. Okay, cool. So we'll grab the deck and we'll start searching until we take the first, and we'll take the first ally we see. Not an ally. Police raid. Ah, here we go. Ooh. I like the look of that ally too. Give these a quick shuffle. All right. Sorry, I was just doing a shuffle off camera. The Syndicate Agent. Gain +2 strength during combat encounters. You may reroll 1 die when resolving a strength test during a combat encounter. So we'll put that on Zoe's player tray. That will do it for Zoe. That will do it for the encounter phase. Now we'll move back up top for the Mythos phase. We have the dice tower in shot just in case we need to do any rolling on any reckonings. But let's take a look and see what we've got. We are going to be doing a lot of rolling. Okay, so we start off with Omen movement, which is what that symbol is. So we move onto a blue constellation gate, or onto a blue constellation. We have no blue constellation gates on the board right now, so Doom does not advance. Then we go into Reckonings. So this is going to take a while. So monsters first. We do have a cultist on the board, but because Jenny moved out to space 5, we don't get ambushed. Ancient One. Investigators as a group lose sanity equal to the number of gates on the board unless the lead investigator gains a blight condition. Lead investigator would be Jenny, but we have so much sanity on the team, Carolyn will just lose 1 sanity because of the gate on the board. Let's see, Mythos cards. We do have our Rumor, so that gets an Eldritch token taken off of it. And Possessions and Conditions. So let's have a look here at our Possessions and Conditions. Jenny is up first. She has her hallucinations to test, so we have to test Will. Good thing I brought the dice tower and shot. Okay, Jenny is clear on that. Then Daisy, we're going to roll for her cursed first. On a 4, 5, or 6, it goes away. We're going to roll for that first so we have at least something resembling a chance of not flipping her leg injury. That's a 4, so cursed doesn't really come back to bite us, fortunately. Alright, and now we roll for her leg injury, which is also going to translate, which like I said, is likely to translate to, on a reckoning, flip this card. Color me unsurprised. So Daisy's leg injury flips and we find out how much worse it gets. You know the injury is not severe, but with every few steps you take, the pain in your ankle forces you to rest for a few minutes. Become delayed, then flip this card. Surprisingly, I actually don't mind being delayed here too much because... Oh, then flip this card. Yikes. So I actually don't mind that right now, because the expedition stayed on the Himalayas after Daisy did it last turn. So we'll get another shot at an expedition encounter. Carolyn also has to roll a die. On a 4, 5, on a 1 or a 2, she loses her blessing. So hopefully we'll actually get to use her blessing, unlike Daisy, who we wanted to get rid of her curse as fast as we could. That's a 5, so we'll actually get to see, hopefully, cross my fingers, get to see a turn where Carolyn actually gets to use her blessing. And then there are those other 2 dice. Okay, just trying to keep everything somewhat organized in this giant of a game. And then Zoe is all clear on her reckonings. Okay. Then last up, we spawn a gate. So our new gate will be Antarctica. So we'll need a gate stand for that, and then we'll need a monster in a second. In fact, I think we're done with the dice tower, so I can get that out of my way. Alright. We get... This is the monster that goes on the gate. Oh boy, we get a crawling one. Take a look on the back. Will -1, you need 2 successes to not lose sanity. Strength, variable strength to not lose health. 3 toughness to kill it. Magical resistance, which, similar to 2nd edition, means if you have an item that, if you have something that has the magical trait on it, you only get half the dice from it. And then strength is, damage is equal to your base strength. Yuck. Crawling one will go to Antarctica. Alright. Yikes. Sweating and exhausted, you stop to rest in what little shade you can find. You've already heard stories of this heat wave claiming the lives of sick or elderly individuals. You fear that if you keep going at this pace, you might fall victim to it as well. Heat wave singes the globe. Event. Each investigator loses 3 health unless she becomes delayed. Well, Daisy's already delayed, so she can't become delayed again, which means, unfortunately, she's stuck losing 3 health. So she's down to 2. Zoe, I want to leave there so I can try to encounter the clue. The only problem with being delayed is you essentially skip your turn because your entire turn is just standing up. So Zoe's going to become delayed. Carolyn is... I need to keep something moving here, so I think Carolyn is... Well, Jenny's definitely going to lose the 3 health. She'll be able to rest it back, and she has the highest health of the team, so she'll go down to 4 health. Carolyn, what am I doing with Carolyn this round? Yuck, yuck, yuck. I think she's going to lose 3 health as well. Just because we need to keep something moving in this game. So anyway, that will do it for the Mythos phase. Now we're back into the encounter phase, and we'll have Jenny still be the first player. So Jenny's running a lot of the same types of turns. In fact, the only spice we're going to have this time is we're actually going to spend her ship ticket on a travel action. So we're going to move to San Francisco, jar the camera by mistake, and then spend the ship ticket to get her down to space 7. And then I will zoom out just a touch so I get the dice tower in shot, because Jenny is once again, say it with me kids, going to use her component action on herself. So, 6 dice once again. I mean, there could actually be an argument to trying to rest here, but I definitely want to keep ripping through the reserve so I can get more weapons out. Alright, so we have 4 successes once again. That was a 5, and unfortunately her fine jewelry once again won't let us do anything in terms of making a 4 into a success. So, let's just bring her 4 successes down to the reserve. Alright, with the idea of keeping the reserve moving, this time Jenny is going to use the debt wipe. So she's going to pick up the kerosene, which is a one-time +5 strength during a combat encounter. The protective amulet, which is +1 will during combat encounters. And then the map of the ley lines, which is a +1 lore and +1 will. I'll plan on passing that off. And then once per round I can reroll 1 die when resolving a test during an otherworld encounter. So, put that in there. And then we need 3 new assets for the reserve. So first up we will find Lavish Feast. When you gain this card, immediately recover 2 health and 2 sanity, then discard this card. Next up we'll find Occultist's Journal. Item, Tome Magical. Gain +2 will and +2 strength during combat encounters, 3 cost to acquire. And Expert's Blade. Item, Magical Relic Weapon. When you gain this card from the Decker Reserve, gain 1 talent condition, gain +2 strength during combat encounters. Okay. Alright, so that will do it for Jenny. Now let's move over to Carolyn in Rome. Alright, we're going to start off with Carolyn in shot, because she's the only one who's actually able to have a turn this round. So I'm going to give her the 2. For action 1, she's going to rest, bringing her back up to 3 health and 7 sanity. Then she's going to get a focus. So she's up to full focus. Then number 3 will be Daisy, who will just stand up. And number 4 will be Zoe, who will also just stand up, and there's still a clue there for her to encounter. So that's why I didn't mind the delayed there in that case. But that will do it for the action phase. Now we'll go over to the encounter phase, and we'll go say hello to Jenny over in Colombia. Hello, Jenny in Colombia. We'll move the camera over here a little bit more. Let's see about getting some more of these clues, huh? So let's have a research encounter. On a city space. You hire the finest burglar you can afford to break into the police station and steal a case file on the Cult of the Yellow Sign. Test influence. Well, it's a good thing Jenny is actually moderately good at influence at 4. So let's see what we can do here. A nice job on passing another test, another influence test, Jenny. If you pass, the burglar finds what you need, gain this clue, which will move one of those straight to the mystery. So we need 4 more. Fortunately, we have at least one other investigator who is going to be looking at a clue this turn. Unfortunately, that investigator who's going to be looking at a clue is not our next investigator. Let's go say hello to Carolyn in Rome. We are -1 clue in Rome, which means Carolyn is going to be having a Rome encounter. So let's take a look and see what she's got. You study the city's feral cats. Observation. Oh boy, her observation is only 2, but we are rolling blessed dice. So we'll show off the blessed dice real quick. As you might have seen with the regular black and green dice, the successes show up on your 5s. On your 5s and your 6s, but you also get a success on 4s. Whereas the cursed dice will be similar and being red, but only show 6s as successes. So let's see what we can do with this. Pass it rather handily. Alright, so let's have a look at what we have here. If you pass, the cats lead you to a priestess of Bast who offers you the favor of her goddess. Improve will and gain 1 boon condition. So unfortunately, our will is already maxed out, but we can definitely get a boon condition. So Carolyn, as a boon, yeah, we'll give her Living Link, which is right here. Oh my. Alright, so get that going again. Give it a quick cut. Living Link. Gain +1 to all skills. Oh my. If you would gain a Bane condition, you may discard this card instead. On a Reckoning, your destiny awaits. Flip this card. So that's a boon for Carolyn. Anyway, that will do it for Carolyn. Now we'll move over to Daisy, who is stuck in the Himalayas. Alright, Daisy, we dodged a bullet with not having to roll cursed dice. Let's see if our roll can be a little better this time, as we're still at the Himalayas. The Himalayas. The Nofke summons a terrible blizzard to destroy you and your expedition. You'll have to survive the storm before you can continue. Test strength. Oh dear God, Daisy. Why do we end up getting the strength tests? Oh joy. We pass it though, surprisingly. And more than somewhat relieving, and more than somewhat of a relief as well. You weather the storm in a cave and find a statue of a 3-eyed horror surrounded by odd relics. Gain 1 artifact. Nice! Alright, so Daisy gets... the Necronomicon. Oh my. Item Tome. Action Test Lore. If you pass, you may spend 1 sanity to gain 2 spells. That could be very handy, especially if we need to start getting spells in a hurry. And it's a good thing it's going on a high sanity character too, but there's more. You try to determine the statue's origin, lore -1. Alright, that's a lot better than the strength test that we just had to pass, Daisy, so... Let's not make me pay for this, huh? Nicely done. We got a pass there. And as we look at the encounter card, we avoid bad stuff. Okay. Wow. So the expedition deck is staying on the Himalayas again. That expedition token is staying on the Himalayas again. So yeah, we will probably end up doing that next round. But that will do it for Daisy. Now let's go have a look at Zoe. Alright, Zoe, let's see if we can get this clue and get her moving. Alright. A city space. One of your friends has been acting strangely and asks to meet with you in private. Your friend asks if you have seen the yellow sign and begs you to help pave the way for the king. If you have an ally asset, you may gain a blight condition to gain this clue and a promise of power condition. Well, I do happen to have an ally. The question is, do I want the blight condition and the clue? The blight condition, a clue, and a promise of power. Or do I want to keep the ally? Well, now that I've got some weapons in the reserve, I think I will take a blight condition so I can get to gain the clue and a promise of power condition. So we'll put the clue up on the mystery. This is probably a bad play, but I'm trying to keep the clues moving a little bit. So we'll move that up to the mystery. We'll get a blight condition, which I think is going to ultimately end up losing me my ally anyway. Yep. All right. Blight. When you gain this card, discard one ally asset. On a reckoning, the allies you surround yourself with act erratically and without cause. Flip this card. So that does lose me the Syndicate Agent. But hopefully I can deal with that. I'll keep the blight conditions close because I'm probably going to need those. And I do need a promise of power condition as well. Let's see here. Promise of power. Okay. All right. Promise of power. Deal. You may discard this card to reroll any number of dice when resolving a test. On a reckoning, roll one die. On a 6, your patience has finally been rewarded. Flip this card. Alright, we'll put that on Zoe. Then that will do it for the encounter phase. And now we'll move back up top for the Mythos phase. This is actually kind of an interesting position to be in, because on the one hand, I wouldn't mind a reckoning to try to clear some of this stuff out, but on the same token, I don't want a reckoning because I know I need Daisy to rest badly before I go into the next encounter phase. So let's see what we get. We get our reckoning. Fantastic. Okay, so we start with Omen movement, and we do have a red gate on the board, so we advance Doom by 1. Now we have a reckoning. Fantastic. So monsters. Jenny is adjacent to the cultist, so she's going to get ambushed by the Bayaki. And I think that's our only... yeah. Alright, so Jenny's getting ambushed by this Bayaki. I'll bring the dice tower back and shot for in a second. Alright, so it's a straight will test. So Jenny's will is 4 because of the map of the... actually, no, it's 5 because she has got the Ankh, which gives her a +2. So we get 5 dice. And we only need 1 success to not lose sanity. Then I see 2 successes in there, so we're all clear there. Then the strength modifier, and then the strength test is straight strength. I need 2 successes to both not take damage and kill it. So I'm going to use a strength test, so it's going to be 2, 3, 4 dice. It's 4 dice because I've got the 25 automatic, which lets me roll 1 additional die. And the 18 Derringer lets me add 1 to the result of a die on a strength test during a combat encounter. So yeah, Jenny takes 1 damage, and the 18 Derringer wouldn't have let me kill it anyway. So Jenny gets ambushed, and she gets hit for 1. So the Bayaki goes back off the board. Let's see here. Okay, so that was monsters. Ancient 1. Investigators as a group lose sanity equal to the number of gates on the game board unless the lead investigator gains a blight condition. So I think with 2 gates on the board right now, once again, Carolyn is going to lose the sanity because she can rest it right back. Alright, then that's the Ancient 1. Mythos cards. So we lose a token off of the transport off of the rumor. That is probably going off on their next reckoning, which won't be next turn because we have the other rumor to go. And then possessions and conditions. Jenny tests will, so that's 4 dice for her. She passes, so she doesn't flip that. Carolyn's got a roll for her blessed. I'm going to take this 5 because I do not want to see a 1 or a 2 here. That's a 5, so Carolyn keeps her blessing. And then her living link actually flips. Your destiny awaits. Actually. Okay, sorry, I'm working on my off-camera thing here. Alright, living link. Your destiny awaits. Flip this card. Legacy of the Yithians. While you were trapped in a Yithian's body in the city of the Great Race, the creature's mind was using your body to make changes to your life, preparing you to fulfill its alien purpose. Improve 1 skill of your choice, then flip this card. Nice! So I think on that note, Carolyn's actually going to improve her influence. So we'll bring her up to 4 on that. So we'll give her a +1 influence and bring her up to 4. Alright, then Carolyn's cleared. Daisy, leg injury, aka flip this card, but just for formality's sake, we'll roll it out. And we flip it again. So Daisy becomes delayed. Then we flip that back over. Zoe is going to roll for her promise of power. If I roll a... Roll 1 die. On a 6, your patience has finally been rewarded. Flip this card. Alright, so we'll go ahead and roll. And this isn't something I'd be able to spend a focus on, because it's not a test. Okay, so we don't flip her Promise of Power, but we do flip her Blight. Oh dear. Psychotic Break. The Grisly attack is sure to be tomorrow's headline. Resolve one effect of your choice. Discard one ally asset, then flip this card. Lose 3 health and impair influence and strength, then discard this card. Unfortunately, I don't have an ally to discard, so I have to lose 3 health and impair influence and strength. Gross. So that brings Zoe down to 2 health. And then impair strength and influence. Okay. Alright, so there's -1 strength and -1 influence going on Zoe. The only bright spot is we discard this Blight, so yeah. That could have been even worse. Alright, coming back to our Mythos card. Now we have a gate spawn. So our new gate is Tokyo, another blue constellation gate, which we're moving to next. That's going to be a problem. And then we need a monster to go with it. So we end up with a Dimensional Shambler. Ooh. Alright. Will -1, you need 2 successes to not lose sanity. Observation -1, need successes to not take damage. 2 toughness to kill. You don't take damage, actually. But if you fail the observation test, you gain a lost in time and space condition. Yikes. So observation seems to be starting to become a more important stat for this game. So I'll have to keep that in mind as I look at who to eventually bring in. A cold, bitter wind howls through the trees, and people everywhere cling to their fires and blankets. The chill has settled into your bones, and there's no warmth to be found. Tides of Despair event. Each investigator loses 2 health and 2 sanity unless he discards a blessed condition. So let me get this straight. We had a heat wave earlier in the game, and now we have a blizzard. Great. Unfortunately, we do have a big problem on our hands, because Jenny has to lose 2 and 2, going to 1 health and 3 sanity. Carolyn is absolutely going to discard her blessed condition because I don't want her down at 1 health either. Unfortunately, Daisy and Zoe aren't going to be as lucky because they don't have a blessed condition to discard, which means they both actually get defeated by damage. Yuck. Alright, so Daisy will have to move to the nearest city, which will move her to Shanghai. Get a stand there. Put a damage token there. Zoe can actually stay in Istanbul because that's already a city space. Doom advances by 2. We get all their stuff. I think deals... So the only good thing about Zoe's impairments is she didn't have them for long. I don't think deal conditions go. Discards all condition cards, so the Promise of Power wouldn't stay. But the task would. And we'll get Daisy out of the way as well. Leg injury can go away. Yikes. Okay then. So yeah, that's a thing that just happened. Anyway, we will have to replace 2 investigators, and then we'll go through the new investigators before we jump into the next encounter phase. Zoe's replacement is Monterey Jack, the archaeologist. One of my friend's favorite investigators in this game. 7 health, 5 sanity, 2 lore, 2 influence, 3 observation, 4 strength, 2 will. Action, you may discard 1 artifact to retreat doom by 1, or discard the top card of the expedition encounter deck and perform 1 additional action. After resolving an expedition encounter, gain 1 relic unique asset. To find a treasure like that, I'll risk a few poison darts. Alright, so he starts off with the Bullwhip. Gain +1 strength during combat encounters. You may reroll 1 die when resolving a strength test during a combat encounter. And when we go to the board, I'll show you where the replacement investigators are starting. And the treasure map. There we go. When you gain this card from the deck, place 1 random clue face up on this card. After resolving a location or an expedition encounter on that space, flip this card. Alright, so let's see where Monty's treasure map is taking him. Here are the clues. Make sure that stays muted. Alright. Wow. So Monty's treasure map is taking him to San Francisco, which he's got quite a ways to go on that. But, yeah. That could be a little bit of a problem, and we might not have time to get that going. But anyway, that will do it for Zoe's replacement. Now let's go meet Daisy's replacement. We're actually not moving to meet Daisy's replacement yet, because first we gotta go through Monty's personal story. Searching ages past. History whispers, Monterey. All you have to do is listen. Your father's words echo in your mind. You will make him proud. After resolving an expedition encounter, place 1 Eldritch token on this card. Then, if there are 3 Eldritch tokens on this card, discard this card and gain the Nothing Stays Hidden reward. At the end of the encounter phase, if there are clues on the game board equal to or greater than the number of investigators plus 6, discard this card and gain the Dug Too Deep consequence. Looking at the board right now, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clues on the board. So we are clear on that for a little while. But that will do it for Monty. Now let's go meet Daisy's replacement. Daisy's replacement is Agnes Baker, the waitress. She was the monster puncher in my summer campaign for the Circle Undone, before that went sideways. 7 health, 5 sanity, 4 lore, 3 influence, 2s across the board for observation, strength, and will. Her action, test lore -1. If you pass, gain 1 spell. You may spend 1 health to roll 2 additional dice when resolving a strength test as part of a spell effect. I remember another life, one of sorcery and conquest. Agnes starts off with a Profane Tome, which lets her reroll 1 die when resolving a will test during a combat encounter. And a Storm of Spirits, which we saw earlier when Jenny got hers. Alright, and then we have In a Past Life, her personal story. You try to recall the memories of your past self, but it seems that only in the heat of battle do you draw enough arcane energy to trigger them. When you defeat a non-epic monster during a combat encounter, place that monster on this card. Then, if the total toughness of monsters on this card is 10 or greater, discard this card and gain the Blood Awakened reward. When you have only 1 health, discard this card and gain the History Repeats consequence. So we need to send Agnes into combat without getting herself killed using her passive. So before we jump back into the next action phase, let's move back over to the board briefly and take stock of our new situation. So from Zoe and Daisy biting it, we actually end up at 8 doom right now, and we're very close to Jenny failing her personal story at 6 doom. In fact, it will fail on the next movement to blue constellation, unless we can somehow close both of these blue constellation gates before then. I think that's going to be a hard sell, but we'll definitely give it our best shot. So anyway, Monterey starts off in the pyramids. Agnes starts in London. With that, I think we're ready to go into our next encounter phase, and our first investigator will be Jenny. So we'll get down to the board. On a somewhat related note, I don't think I'm going to be able to stop the rumor from going off. Plus, we're going to get our next rumor out anyway this turn. So right now, we've been putting clues on the mystery like crazy. Unfortunately, I'm basically just giving this rumor up as being lost. So Jenny will actually rest, going up to 4 sanity and 2 health. Then she gets to roll a die on her hallucinations. On a 5 or 6, she gets rid of it. So let's see if we're quite that lucky. We are that lucky, surprisingly. So hallucinations goes away, which Jenny will welcome very much. Put that over here. And then hopefully we'll continue that as we... I think she's going to use her component action, but she's going to use it on Agnes, who is in a city space. Yeah, she's going to use it on Agnes. So Agnes is going to get 5 dice, because Agnes's influence is 3. So let's see what we can do with this. We will get 2 successes. Actually, I feel dumb, but because I could have had Jenny use that on herself. Now that I remember what's down here, I think we are going to rewind that. I think Jenny's instead going to use her component action on herself. And then when she performs a rest action, before we do that, I did forget, Jenny has her stone tablet over here where when she rests, you may attempt to decipher the carvings on the tablet, lore -1. If you pass, flip this card. Jenny's lore is 2 -1. This is still a 1 lore test, so come on, Jenny. Okay, we passed that. Alright, so stone tablet. Alright. Stone tablet. The ancient writing tells a story of victory over the dark gods that threaten reality. After reading it, the trauma you have suffered seems to loosen its grasp on you. Resolve 1 effect of your choice. Recover 1 sanity or discard 1 madness condition, then flip. Discard 1 condition, then discard. Looking over here, we don't have any conditions, so we'll just recover 1 sanity and flip this card. And then about that acquire assets action, who is going to do that? I ultimately want to move that over to Agnes if I can, but if I get the Cultist's Journal, I want to move that over to Agnes. You know, although Jenny does need the 2 health from the lavish feast. And getting the Expert's Blade wouldn't be terrible either. Alright, I'm going to actually rewind the component action for Jenny. Jenny's going to use her component action on herself. Hopefully I can get a decent amount of successes and then have the debt wipe for Agnes to try to acquire assets. Well, I have 1 success. So let's move down to the reserve with that one success. The debt wipe here could give me the Expert's Blade too, but I think I'd rather save the debt wipe for when Agnes tries to acquire assets. So Jenny's just going to grab the Lavish Feast. When you gain this card, immediately recover 2 health and 2 sanity, then discard this card. So she's already at full sanity, but that does bring her back to 4 health. So we don't have to worry about that rumor just out and out killing her. So our next asset that we get is going to be the 45 automatic. 2 successes needed to acquire it. Item weapon. Gain +3 strength during combat encounters. Okay, so that definitely gives us more options. So we've got the firepower out if we can get it into the right hands. But that will do it for Jenny. Our second investigator will be Carolyn. So let's move up to Rome. For Carolyn's first action, she's going to rest, which will let her gain 1 health, and also spawn a clue. Although 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, never mind. Plus we need clues for the mystery anyway. So I don't want to start putting... Wait a minute. 1, 2... Okay, yeah, 5. This is going to be 6. And we're spawning this because of the Dream Diary. So our clue is going to... Come on. It's going to space 10, which is actually surprisingly accessible. So then for action 2, I think Carolyn will move down and have a look at that and plan on having a look at that clue this turn. Anyway, that will do it for Carolyn. As long as Monty's in shot, we'll have him go third because I know what he's doing. He's going to move up to Istanbul. I'll plan on encountering Zoe this turn. And then I'll get this out of my way, and then I'll have Monty gain a focus. Actually, better idea. Before I do that, I'm probably still going to do the focus. But I'm going to discard the Tokyo Expedition encounter, hopefully move it somewhere more accessible, and I do not. I move that one to Antarctica, which is more out of the way, but I can keep cycling that through. And then Monty will gain a focus. Anyway, that will do it for Monty. Let's move up to Agnes, who will be our last investigator this round. Actually, we have Agnes right here in shot. So for her first action, she's going to gain a focus. There we are. And then I don't think I want to be spawning too... I kind of have to strike a balance between spawning too many clues and then failing Monty's personal story. So I think she's going to move up to space 13 and try to encounter another clue for our mystery. That will do it for the action phase. Let's move into the encounter phase, and we'll go start with Jenny. Fortunately, we have the dice tower already in shot, so we can go ahead and start getting some of these research encounters. So Jenny is on a city space for her clue and for her research encounter. Come on, focus. The Mafia offers to sell you information on recent occult dealings. Influence -1. Roll 2 additional dice if you have a deal condition. Jenny does not have any conditions right now. Still, influence -1 for her is pretty good at 3 dice. So we'll zoom back in to capture the dice tower. Unfortunately, we fail miserably. Unless we have a reroll on influence tests, and I don't think we do. That's unfortunate. Jenny's usually so good at these influence tests. If you fail, your offer is found to be inadequate. And they send men after you. Gain 1 injury condition. That's unfortunate. Alright, so the injury condition Jenny will end up with is... Wrong file. Here we go. Bad conditions. Jenny... Injury gets... Jenny gets a leg injury. So we'll give this a quick shuffle. Cut. And we saw this earlier, which basically drove Zoe to the point of doomsday. Anyway, that will do it for Jenny. Unfortunately that we couldn't get that clue. But now we'll move over to Monterey, who's in Istanbul with a fallen friend. Alright, so we've got Monty, Agnes, and Carolyn all in shot here. So Monty's going to encounter Zoe as a defeated investigator. So we take a look at the back of Zoe's investigator sheet. If defeated in case of crippling injury or death. Zoe's wounds have left her hospitalized and unable to talk. Grudgingly, she's left everything for you in a safety deposit box. Gain all of her possessions. Alright, so Monty ends up with bury them deep in the Holy Cross, which we need because we're going to need the 2 will most likely on combat checks. Alright. When you return from the bank, the hospital is on fire. You try to find the courage to run in and rescue Zoe. Will. Oh boy. And Monty's will is all of 2. So let's see if we can get some luck here. Actually, I did this slightly out of order, but it's not going to change anything. These encounters aren't going to impact anybody, I don't think. Alright, so we pass. So Monty passes. Actually, no, I think we had Monty go second. I don't remember. Anyway, we'll pretend he went second. If you pass, Zoe gratefully says a prayer for you. Gain 1 boon condition. If you fail, yada yada yada. Whether you pass or not, discard her investigator token. Okay. So we do get a boon from Monty. Monterey Jack has a living link just like Carolyn does. Go. We'll give him a living link just as a review. +1 to all skills. If you would gain a Bane condition, you may discard this card instead. On a reckoning, your destiny awaits. Flip this card. See if we can run through encounters on this last little charge of battery. Carolyn is in the wilderness encountering a clue. Wilderness. An apparition donned in flowing golden robes visits you in your dreams, speaking to you in an alien tongue. Lore -1. So Carolyn's lore right now is 2. I'll grab these dice since they're already in here. And we pass. If you pass, you believe that you are being offered a gift. Gain the Tattered Cloak artifact. I would have rather had the clue, truth be told, but I won't complain about getting the Tattered Cloak, about getting an artifact. Alright. Item magical. You may spend 1 fewer sanity to pay for an effect. If an effect would cause you to lose sanity, lose 1 fewer sanity instead. Okay, so that might be an artifact that we pitch to try to retreat Doom. I move over to Monty to try to pitch to retreat Doom. But anyway, Agnes is up at sea encountering a clue as well. Something deep within you has been calling you to the ocean. Staring into its black depths, you realize you must choose between 2 evils. Spawn 1 gate unless you gain a Dark Pact condition. If you gain the condition, the sleeper in the depths informs you about the unspeakable one. Gain this clue. Ick. Anybody who knows me knows I normally don't like Dark Pacts. But spawn a gate unless you gain one. Ugh. Yeah, gates are starting to turn into a little bit of a problem, and I don't want to take a chance on getting another blue gate, or another gate out of the way, period. So I think we are going to have to take the Dark Pact. So here are the Dark Pacts. Give these a shuffle. And a cut. And we'll take that as Agnes's Dark Pact. On a reckoning, roll 1 die. On a 1, it is time to fulfill your part of the bargain. Flip this card. And Agnes does get the clue, which will go up on the mystery. Anyway, that will do it for the encounter phase. We'll go up top for the Mythos phase after I change my battery. We're back up top for the Mythos phase. The one mercy we have right now is that this next card is a rumor. Color me unsurprised. Alright, so we'll get clues. And I forgot to take Zoe's token off the board. Now it's gone. And now we'll get our 2 clues. Alright, so our clues. First up, we have space 12, which is down here at C. And it's upside down, but it is Sydney. Which is all the way over here. I'll get 4 Eldritch tokens for the rumor. The street is eerily quiet for the middle of the day. Doors are locked and windows are boarded up. Each closed shop bears a sign indicating that the owner has left and has no plans to return. Moved to Boston. Ongoing rumor. An asset cannot be placed in a space of the reserve that contains an Eldritch token. After an investigator performs the Acquire Assets action, he may spend clues equal to the number of Eldritch tokens on this card to solve this rumor. On a reckoning, discard one asset from the reserve and place one Eldritch token from this card on that space of the reserve. Alright, so we've got the 4 Eldritch tokens that are going on that rumor. Alright, so we need 2 more clues to solve that mystery. I think our first investigator will be... I think our first investigator will actually be... I think it'll still be Jenny, and we'll get down to the board. Here we are with Jenny. Yes, I turned on the air conditioner again in the background because it's getting pretty warm. Now, in our situation right now, transported to the Hyades is going to go off. There's nothing we can do to stop it. The only question is it going off this turn or in a couple turns? It probably won't take too long, but I think we can be strategic with the other rumor and maybe use it to cycle some stuff we don't want out of the reserve. So I think Jenny will start with a focus, because she can already survive the 2 and 2 that the rumor is going to deal. And then we'll go ahead and test, and we'll go ahead and use her component action to try to acquire some of these resources on herself. Alright, I see 2 successes, but that's all we can get, unless we want to use the debt wipe, which is moderately tempting. Let's move down to the reserve and see what we think. We're down here at the reserve. The debt wipe is tempting, but I don't think I think we're just going to grab the 45 automatic because I definitely need another weapon for her. So we'll get a fresh asset out of the reserve, or a fresh asset out of the deck. We find the Grim Lexicon. When you gain this card from the deck or reserve, gain a clue. Reduce the horror of monsters you encounter by 1 to a minimum of 1. Okay, we'll probably have to try to get that out of the reserve before our rumor starts causing us problems, but that will do it for Jenny. Next up, we will go pay Monty a visit. Alright, here we are with Monty. The Himalayas reserve the Himalayas expedition deck is moderately accessible right now, but we're going to cycle the Antarctica deck to see if we can get it somewhere more accessible, and it's going to end up on... That's Shanghai, actually. So right on top of Daisy as well. Then as part of that, he's going to move. And then for action 2, he's going to get another focus. So he's going to be up to 2 foci. That will do it for Monty. Up next will be Agnes, and her turn will take us... Actually, Agnes is right here in shot. So action 1, she's going to move to London. And then action 2, she's going to take another focus, so she's all the way focused up. That will do it for Agnes. Let's move over to Carolyn. We won't have to move far for Carolyn. For action 1, she's going to rest to go up to full health and gain 2 sanity to go back up to full, and then also spawn a clue because of her dream diary. So we're going to end up with a clue. Space 9, which is up in Greenland. And then for action 2, she's going to grab a resource, which you can use as additional successes on acquire assets or to recover additional health or sanity when you rest. So that will do it for Carolyn. That will do it for the action phase. Now we're into the encounter phase, and we'll go pay Jenny a visit. Jenny, we really need that clue, so let's have a research encounter on a city space. A sharp-featured young woman claiming to be a master of several questionably legal techniques has offered to join you, under the condition that you never try to unearth anything about her past. You may gain a Dark Pact condition to gain this clue and the Karina Jones unique asset. So let's grab the Karina Jones unique asset out. I'm almost sure she's an ally. Ah, here we go. Karina Jones, ally character. Roll 1 additional die when resolving an influence or observation test. When you gain this card from the deck, gain 1 talent condition. Given how crappy our team's observation is, a Dark Pact and this clue is probably a Dark Pact for this clue and the unique asset, Karina, and a talent condition. I think that's worth it, and I usually tell these Dark Pacts to get bent, but I'm playing way more dangerously with these than I probably should be, honestly. But that'll bring us up to 7 clues on the mystery, and we need twice. So, which we put that right up on the mystery. Monty was 2, Agnes was 3, Carolyn was 4. Okay, so we got that figured out. That will do it for Jenny. Now let's go pay Monty a visit. Look at that. We have our last 3 investigators in shot. We'll start off with Monty, who's having a generic city encounter. This idyllic city is invigorating but expensive. Recover 1 health and 1 sanity. He's already at full, so we'll continue. You ask the locals about finding bargains. Influence. Oh dear. His influence is 2, but he's actually got a living link, so he's +1. Come on, Monty. And we pass. Nice. If you pass, they provide discounts. Gain 1 resource. Oh, wrong deck. There we go. Alright, so we'll get a resource out for Monty. Put that on his player area. We'll go to Agnes, who's having a London encounter. Is she gonna have a London encounter, or am I going to... How many clues do we have on the board? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we can have a London encounter. We won't be in... Oh, wait. Hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We can have a London encounter safely and spawn some more clues, but we need to be careful. H.G. Wells shows you items from the future after the Ancient Ones have destroyed humanity. You cannot bear to look at them. Will. Agnes's will is pretty bad at 2. Actually, does she have anything else? She does not. Okay. We pass. If you pass, you see a way to avoid that future. Gain 1 task unique asset. Alright, so Agnes will, for a task asset, Agnes will end up with Light of Reason. Come back over to the binder. Wait a second. Ah, here we go. Continue doing this shuffle on camera. Here we cut, and there's our Light of Reason. All right, now we finally get to take a look at Light of Reason. once it decides to focus. There we go. Light of Reason. Whenever you gain a clue during a research encounter, you may spend one clue to place one clue on this card, then you may flip. So another task asset. That will do it for Agnes. Carolyn, we need this last clue. So let's have a wilderness encounter, a wilderness research, and get it. You pose as a disciple of the Yellow King in order to gather information, but you find yourself needing to partake in their daily ceremonies, lore. Unfortunately, we've managed to improve Carolyn's lore. And we actually have 4 dice because she has Living Link. We'll zoom in on the dice tower here. And we managed to pass. Very nicely done, Carolyn. Alright, let me zoom back out. There we go. If you pass, you mimic the rituals perfectly, gain this clue. Perfect. So we now have 8 clues on the mystery. We will solve that at the end of the Mythos phase. But we have one more thing we have to do first. General encounter or expedition? Never mind, we don't. So I thought mineralogy research would work on a research encounter, but it won't. Anyway, that will do it for the encounter phase. Now let's move back up top for the Mythos phase. We're back up top for the Mythos phase. I'm going to give you a fair warning right now. Our next reckoning is going to be a long one. Let's see what we get from the Deck of Doom. Okay. We have a green. So we have Omen movement, which advances us to a blue constellation. We have 2 blue constellations on the board, which advances us down to 6 doom and fails Jenny's personal story. So we'll put these clues back in the box, or back in the bag. I kind of figured we'd fail her personal story. So we end up with Too Late. When you gain this card, impair Influence and Will. Your maximum health and sanity are reduced by 1. So we're at 6 and 4, but I think we can deal with that. So we'll also get the impairments for Influence and Will. Right, there are those for Jenny. Okay, next up, we have a Monster Surge. So each blue constellation gate will get 2 more monsters with it, or on it. We'll go to Antarctica first. We'll grab our 4 stands out. There we go. First monster up. We have a cultist in Antarctica, shocker of shockers. And a Wendigo also in Antarctica. Take a look at this. Straight will, 1 success not to lose sanity. Strength -1, need 3 successes to not take damage. 2 toughness to kill it. If you defeat this monster during a combat encounter, roll 1 die. On a 1 or a 2, gain a hunger condition. Thematically appropriate that spawns in Antarctica. Now we're going to Tokyo. Alright, first monster up is a Carrier Night Gaunt. Straight Will, need 2 successes to not lose sanity. Strength -1, need 1 success to not lose health. 2 toughness to kill it. If you pass both the Strength and Will tests, you may choose to have this monster lose no health. If you do, you and this monster move to a space within 2 spaces. So that'll go into Tokyo, join the Dimensional Shambler. And we have a young Chthonian. Will -1, need 2 successes to not lose sanity. Strength -1, need 2 successes to not lose health. 3 toughness to kill it. When this monster is spawned, each investigator on this space or an adjacent space loses 1 and 1. Fortunately, we have nobody adjacent to Tokyo, which would be space 19 actually, 20 and Shanghai. So all that. So Tokyo is getting pretty crowded too. And then we spawn 2 clues. Got 2 clues. Alright, first clue up is Space 15. So we'll put that down there in South Africa. And our second clue is, what is that? Oh, Buenos Aires. Okay, so we'll put that there. And now we come back to the card. The disturbances occurred in such remote areas that they went largely unnoticed at first, but soon news spread to research outposts. These scientists reached out to you about strange lights in the sky and flocks of birds dying in flight and plummeting to the ground. Strange energies, events. Each investigator on the active expedition space or an adjacent space loses 1 and 1. So Monty actually loses 2 and 2. Then each investigator on the Mystic Ruins space into an adjacent space loses 1 and 1. Finally, shuffle the expedition encounter and Mystic Ruins encounter decks. So Monty loses 2 and 2 because he's adjacent to both expeditions. So we'll give this a quick shuffle. Hopefully we'll end up with them being somewhat accessible. I'm actually kind of glad we didn't end up with a... Alright, so the expedition that was on the Himalayas, that was on Shanghai, moves to Tunguska, which will probably get cycled on Monty's next turn. Then the one on the Himalayas is moving to the heart of Africa. Neither one is particularly accessible, but accessible-ish, I guess. But anyway, that's the end of the Mythos phase. And most important to note here is that we have solved our first mystery. So these clues will go back scattering around. But anyway, they'll actually go in the back into the bag. I'll have to go under the table to go. Okay. Now, let's draw our second mystery, and hopefully we get an easy one. Give this a quick shuffle. And a cut. And there's our second mystery. This is going to be the Game Ender one. This one's also going to be close. So let's see what we have. The yellow sign. Each day, grim reports of ordinary people turned psychotic dominate the headlines. Each crime scene is more gruesome than the last, linked together only by the presence of a peculiar yellow glyph. When this card enters play, Each investigator places an Eldritch token on each of the 2 nearest city spaces that don't contain an Eldritch token. After an investigator on a space containing an Eldritch token resolves a location or research encounter, may spend 2 sanity and gain a madness condition to place that Eldritch token on this card. At the end of the Mythos phase, if there are Eldritch tokens on this card equal to twice the investigators, which is once again 8, solve this mystery. Alright, so we are going to need a total of 8 Eldritch tokens. I'll have to go pick up my script. Alright, so Jenny is our first player, so her 2 nearest spaces are Space 7 and San Francisco. Monty is second. His nearest 2 cities are right on top of him. And space... I've got 3 choices. I can choose Istanbul, Shanghai, or Space 20. I'm actually... this is a tough one. I'm actually going to choose Shanghai, since I'll be moving there soon anyway. Then Agnes is player 3. Her 2 nearest spaces are going to be London, and she's going to put 1 on Arkham. Then Carolyn's 2 are going to be Rome and Space 15. So basically we just need to investigate these mysteries. But that will do it for the Mythos phase. We're back to the action phase now. We need to keep things moving here. And our first player will be... Our first player, I think... will be Monty, and we'll head down to the board. Here's Monty. The first thing he's going to do is he's going to use his component action to cycle the Tunguska Expedition, which will move it to the Amazon, which is actually more accessible for Jenny right now, but she's probably not going to be accessing it either. Then he'll actually stay put. He's going to rest to gain 1 health, and he's going to spend his resource to go up to gain 2 sanity to go up to full sanity. And then he's actually going to get a... I'm going to need to get him moving, so I'm going to have him get a ship ticket while he's here and connected to a ship path. Well, he's connected to a sea path, so there's Monty's ship ticket. And then that will do it for Monty. We'll get him the number 1. And I dropped one of my sequence dice. I'll have to go digging for that off camera, but our second player will be... Oh no, it's back here. Never mind. No digging needed. Our second player will be... Agnes, and we'll go up to London. Agnes is up here and shot in London. She's moving exactly nowhere. For action 1, she's going to get a ship ticket as well. Then for action 2, we're going to need the dice tray because we're actually going to use her component action to test lore -1 and draw a spell if she succeeds. So her lore is 4, which means we get 3 dice. Alright, so Agnes did succeed at her component action check, which means she gets a spell. So let's see what spell she gets. Okay. Alright. Here we go. Alright, so Agnes got forced learning. Once per round, when you improve a skill, improve that skill again. On a reckoning, test lore and flip this card. Okay, do we have... No, we don't have anything. Alright, so we... That's right, we got a ship ticket and got the spell. Okay. That will do it for Agnes. Our third investigator will be Carolyn, and all we have to do is move the dice tower out of shot. And we're ready to get going with Carolyn. Now, Carolyn is the investigator that we are going to need to protect like fine china. Because her ability to heal extra sanity and discard madness conditions is going to be very, very handy. So, with that in mind, Action 1, Carolyn is going to move to South Africa. She's going to move down to Cape Town, just out of shot. I probably should have done this differently, but hindsight, as they say. So there's Carolyn for Action 1. Then Action 2, she's going to get a ship ticket as well. Let me double check the mystery. Did that specify? Research encounters work too. So I do have a couple of rumors that I'm going to need to get rid of at some point. So I will probably have a research encounter with Carolyn so I can do some work on those clues. But there's Carolyn's ship ticket. So I'll put that on Carolyn's player area. Then that will do it for Carolyn. Jenny will be up last, and we'll go back up to Columbia. Jenny is going to get a ship ticket. Actually, no, she actually can get a train ticket, and I want her to get a train ticket right now. So we're going to go ahead and grab a train ticket out for Jenny. And then she's going to, say it with me, kids, use her component action on herself. Because we're also going to try to, I want to try to keep ripping through the reserve here. So we'll grab 6 dice. We have 3 successes, so I will move down to let's move down to the reserve. The fine jewelry has done exactly diddly and squat this game. But the debt wipe has been a little more useful, and it's going to be useful again as we grab the occult lexicon, or the grim lexicon, and the cultist journal. So we're going to get Jenny's clue out. There's her clue, which also gives her a reroll. You can spend clues that way as well. And then we need 2 reserves, or 2 assets for the reserve. First up we get an Elder Sign, Trinket Magical, 2 successes to acquire. You may reroll 1 die when resolving a will test during a combat encounter. Reduce the horror of monsters you encounter by 1 to a minimum of 1. We really don't need monster stuff right now, but we really don't need combat right now, but we get Scroll of Secrets. When you gain this card from the deck or reserve, gain 1 clue. Gain +2 lore when resolving spell effects. Okay, Carolyn was 3, Jenny was 4. Alright, that will do it for the action phase. Now let's go, the action phase. Now let's go into the encounter phase, and we will start off with Monty, who's in India. Monty is having a generic city encounter in India. A flood has destroyed the library. You look through the sludge for valuable items. Observation. This is our first character who has been something resembling decent at observation. And he shows it here. With a pass. If you pass, you make an important find. Gain 1 tome unique asset and 1 spell. Alright, so we'll get the tome asset first. Come on. Okay. There's a tome. Old journal. As an action, test observation. We saw this with Daisy earlier. If you pass, you discover important information that may prove useful to your cause. Flip this card. Okay. And actually, he should have rolled one extra die because of Living Link, but I wasn't paying attention to that. Anyway, looking at the mystery, he'll spend 2 sanity and gain a madness condition to place the Eldritch token on his location on the card. So Monty's madness condition that he's going to be ending up with is hallucinations. We saw these earlier. I probably should just get all the madness conditions out now. When you perform a rest, you may roll a die. On a 5 or 6, discard this card. And on a reckoning, test will. If you fail, flip. Which for Monty doesn't quite amount to flip this card, but pretty close at a will of 2. Anyway, that will do it for Monty. Now let's go up to Agnes in London. I actually could have gotten both Monty and Agnes in my last shot, but I didn't, so Agnes will have a generic city encounter, because now we're starting to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we're starting to get up there in clues, so I want to try to avoid putting more clues on the board if I can. Grifters have chosen you to be their next target, or their next mark. You plan on turning the tables with a few tricks of your own. Observation -1. Yuck. Not good, Agnes. Not good. Never mind. I will shut up now. Because we passed. If you pass, you end up with the money and an impressive reputation. Improve influence. Nice. So we'll get an improvement on influence for Agnes. And we'll give that to her, along with 2 sanity and a madness condition. Amnesia. The Eldritch token on the mystery, which I will do that once I get Agnes her madness condition. Alright. Amnesia. When you perform a rest action, you may roll 1 die. On a 5 or 6, discard this card. Reckoning, test will. If you fail, flip. Okay, that is Agnes's first madness. And then her Eldritch token goes on the mystery. Which I forgot to get Monty's as well, so glad I'm paying attention to that. Ish. Alright, that will do it for Agnes. Now let's move down to Carolyn, who's in South Africa. Fortunately for us, a research encounter will work just as well for this mystery as a location encounter will. So Carolyn will have a research encounter in South Africa. City space. You methodically check buildings downtown for the yellow sign. Observation -1, which is effectively a 2. So she would be at 3 from Living Link, but -1 is 2. We will spend the focus to reroll. And pass. If you pass, you find the sign etched onto one door with a knife and take note of who comes and goes. Gain this clue and 1 additional clue. So we'll grab the clue and we'll get another one out of the bag in a minute. There's Carolyn's second clue. Then she's also going to spend the 2 health, except because of the tattered cloak. Let me make sure this spend. Okay, yeah. So Carolyn will actually only spend 1 sanity and gain a madness condition as well, which she will get despair. Despair, madness. When you perform a rest action, you cannot recover sanity. Flip this card. On a reckoning, which is likely coming out now, lose 1 sanity. Well, coming out as soon as Jenny gets done with her encounter. But we also put the Eldritch token on the mystery. Speaking of Jenny, let's go over to Columbia and see what she's getting up to. Generic location encounter coming up for Miss Jenny Barnes. Let's see what we get here. City. You make sure no one is watching before sneaking out of the shop with your stolen goods. Observation. Oh boy. This is a 2, but I think she gets help. Yes, Karina lets her reroll an additional die. That Dark Pact. And she's actually got +1 from the private investigator that we took way back when in the game. And just looking through her mountain of stuff. That looks to be it. So we do have plenty of rerolls. I forgot to give Jenny her talent condition. So back all that up. So before we do that, Jenny's talent condition is Visions. Visions. Talent. You may reroll 1 die when resolving a lore test. Once per round, when another investigator gains a non-common condition, you may look at the back of that card, then flip. I'm not going to rewind all of that because there were a few things that I wouldn't have minded looking at, but there's just been too many by this point. So, we need to test observation. So we have 4 dice in here for her additional die from Corinna. +1 from the private investigator, and we have a reroll from said private investigator. None of which we need because we pass. If you pass, gain 1 item asset from the reserve or 1 random item asset from the deck. Okay, so the item I think I will take is the Scroll of Secrets, and I'll plan on moving... yeah, Scroll of Secrets. Grab that. I'll get the clue out. Come on. There's Jenny's clue. We'll move that over to her area. And then after we resolve the encounter, she'll spend 2 sanity and gain a madness condition. Move the Eldritch token up. So Jenny's madness condition is another bout of amnesia. So I'll bring that. That's the same one that Agnes has. This is going to be a busy reckoning. But the Eldritch token is up on the mystery, and we might actually pull this off, folks, assuming we survive. But anyway, that will do it for the encounter phase. Now let's move back up top for the Mythos phase. We're back up top for the Mythos phase. Before we jump into it, we do need to replace the asset in the reserve. The Scroll of Secrets that we picked up. So replacing that will be Agency Stakeout. When you gain service for 3 successes. When you gain this card, immediately gain 1 clue and 1 monster of your choice on any space loses 3 health. Okay, so here's the question. Would I rather have the Reckoning... Looking at the deck, we have 2 greens and 3 Reckonings. We've had 1 green already, so in the next 2 cards we're getting a Reckoning. We're getting at least 1 Reckoning. The question is, do I want it now, or do I want it next turn? I think I want it next turn, so I can try to get rid of some of this stuff. Let's see what we get. A Reckoning. Fantastic. Alright, so we start off with Omen movement. Fortunately, we have no green gates on the board. And now we have a Reckoning that's going to take about 5 years. Let's see, monsters... Jenny actually gets ambushed. Let me make sure there are no other Reckonings to deal with. Nobody's adjacent to Antarctica, so only Jenny gets ambushed. Alright, so here's our Bayaki once again. Wait, yeah. Okay, so we'll start off with a straight will test. I gotta bring the dice tower back in shot. Actually, we're gonna need the dice tower in shot anyway, because everybody's gonna be rolling for approximately 500 conditions. But, anyway, Jenny's will... I forgot she impaired it. We have 4 from the journal, actually 2 from the journal, which brings us up to, we got a bunch of 2s, so we're at, so essentially 4, yeah, so 4 dice. This is a straight will test, but I've got to remember, as I can't count. Alright, so let's see what this will test does. Okay, so we succeed on that. Then straight strength. 3, 25 automatic lets us roll an additional die, so 4. I think we'll toss the kerosene for another 5, so 9. That's a straight 9. Alright. Is that during a combat encounter? Well. Okay, so the Bayaki is definitely dead, but so we don't take any sanity or damage. If you defeat this monster during a combat encounter, I don't know if this is necessarily a combat encounter that's happening. I don't think it's a combat encounter because it's not happening during the Mythos phase. So we don't get to move, which I wouldn't have minded in the least. But anyway. Okay, next up is the Ancient One, who again, investigators as a group lose sanity equal to the number of gates, which is still 3 somehow. Investigators as a group, unless the lead investigator, who is Monty, gains a blight condition. I think he's going to gain the I think he's going to gain the blight condition only because we won't have to deal with it. We won't have the reckoning go off because we're getting it now. So there's the blight condition. We also don't have an ally to discard to this, so we won't have to worry about that. Okay, all right, that was the Ancient One. Mythos, which means transported to the transported to the Hyades, goes off. So each investigator loses 2 and 2, which drives Jenny insane. Fortunately, Carolyn had already succeeded at her personal story. we're going to have to get that mountain of stuff off Jenny. But actually, that I kind of welcome, to be honest. The condition goes away. Let's see, let's check the 2 and 2 first. So Monty, we're both in, oh boy. Okay, so get the mountain of stuff here, put it aside. Alright, impairment tokens, focus, train ticket. Right. Oh, and the 2 clues. Alright, each investigator loses 2 and 2, impairs 1 skill of their choice. Carolyn will impair... Actually, Agnes and Carolyn will both impair influence, and Monty will impair lore. Then gains an injury, madness, and bane. Gross, gross, gross. Alright, so... Bane, injury... Bane, injury, madness. So, Monty up first. Yeah. So, Monty's haunted, has a leg injury, and is paranoid. So this will be our first time looking at haunted. Oh, here, haunted. All right. There's this haunted condition. If you would gain a blessed condition or improve will, you may discard this card instead. On a reckoning, roll a die on a 1, 2, or 3 flip. We aren't going to have to roll for that this reckoning, but we will on the next reckoning. Let's see. Agnes has, oh boy, corruption, back injury, and also paranoid. So, how did I not bring... Okay. Now, I have a house rule, and I have a feeling I'm getting dangerously close to it. So the house rule I have here is if I have to set up... I might have mentioned this at the start of the video, but if I have to set up 4 new investigators or the Ancient One wakes up, I just tap out at that point. So, yeah. What did we say? Corruption, back injury, and paranoia. Corruption. Paranoia. And a back injury, which is... Oh. Okay, I'm going to put these down here so I can get the back injuries out. Alright. So, we'll shuffle the back. We'll give her the back injury first. Alright. When you perform a rest action, you may roll 1 die. On a 5 or 6, discard this card. Reckoning, test strength. If you fail, flip. So that's another condition that we won't have to test for during this reckoning. Then a paranoia for... Then a paranoia... When you perform a rest action, you may yada yada yada. Reckoning, test will. If you fail, flip. Then the corruption. You may gain 1 Eldritch token to reroll 1 die when resolving a test. If you would gain a boon condition, discard this card instead. Reckoning, gain 1 Eldritch token, then flip. Then Carolyn Bane, injury, madness. Okay, Carolyn's got corruption, leg injury, and amnesia. So leg injury, corruption, and amnesia. Okay, so we don't have to roll. We won't have to roll for those. We do have to. And then that gets solved. And this will take away the research student. So we have to put an Eldritch token there. I did it off camera. I did it just off shot. Alright. Possessions and conditions. Oh boy. Let's see. So what did Monty not have to roll for? He didn't have to roll for his living link. So let's flip this. The remains in 118. Necromancers grew careless and resurrected a powerful wizard by mistake. The ancient, unidentified wizard has chosen you to be the vessel of its righteous wrath. Gain 1 spell and improve lore, then flip. So we get to keep that. Improve lore. Which we impaired earlier, so we get to take that away. Then the spell Monty gets is Alter Fate, which is a glamour. I hate glamour spells. Here we go. Alter Fate. You may trade conditions, focus, improvement tokens, and impairment tokens as part of a trade action. As a reckoning, test lore, and flip. Okay. And then we have to roll for hallucinations. I don't think we do, actually. I think we got that. No, actually, we got... Wait, did I skip over doing Monty's? I don't think I did. Actually. No, I don't think I ever gave him a... I don't think I ever gave him his condition, so he should have an extra injury and a madness condition. Assuming he survives this, which I'm not sure about, I'll set those up for him at that point. Alright, so Agnes has a couple things she needs to roll for. So she's going to start off with rolling for forced learning. That's a lore test. So 4 dice. We get no successes, highly disgusting, but let's see what we've got here. Resolve the effect based on your test result. 0. As new knowledge flows into your mind, other knowledge must leave. Discard this card unless you spend 1 clue. We have to discard this card because we don't have a clue. Then Agnes's Dark Pact. Actually, let's do this. I'm going to set up a couple of different dice. So I'm going to roll her amnesia and her Dark Pact at the same time. So I'm going to use these dice for her amnesia because it's a skill test. Then I'm going to grab a cursed die. Actually, no. Yeah. I'll grab a cursed die because this is something I really don't want to go off. So I don't want to see a 1 on the red die. I want to see a pass on the green and black. And everything's clear, so nothing flips. Thank God. Okay. Then Carolyn has her living link go off. Trying to remember what's on the back here. Improve 1 skill of your choice, then flip. So I think we will improve her... We'll re-improve her influence. Then despair, just lose 1 sanity. Wow. My apologies that took so long, folks. But we are not quite done yet because we also spawn a gate. We end up with the Heart of Africa, which is getting quite crowded. And then we need a monster to go with it. We get a Firebug, which has a Reckoning. Influence test, need 1 success to not lose sanity. Strength check, 2 toughness, 2 hits to not lose health, 1 toughness to kill it. If you pass the influence test, defeat this monster. On a Reckoning, roll 1 die. On a 1 or a 2, advance Doom by 1. So that will go to the Heart of Africa. Piece by piece, you are falling apart. It's getting harder to successfully negotiate simple human interactions. Your wounds won't stop bleeding, and your hands won't stop shaking. From bad to worse. Oh god, that is so thematic right now. Event. Each investigator loses 1 health per injury, 1 sanity per madness condition, and 1 clue per deal. Alright, so we just gained a whole bunch of conditions. So, yeah, this seems very appropriate for going from bad to worse. But let's see here. Okay, so 1 health per injury. I think Monty's clear on that. But he does go insane because he's got a madness condition. We'll see if there's even a point to continuing at this rate. Agnes is also insane because she's got a madness condition as well. So we're down to 4 doom. Agnes was in London, that's right. Carolyn, I think, is the one who actually might survive this. She's not in real good shape, though. She's at 2, and she actually loses only 1 because of her tattered cloak. So we are down to 2 health, 2 sanity, and now we have to set up 3 new investigators. So I think... Actually, we'd be down to 3 doom as well. So I think that's where I'm going to call it. That's where I'm just going to tap out and call it a game. So we'd have to set up 3 new investigators. Although... No. Do I want to take the win that cheesily? I mean, I could bring in fresh investigators at this point. You know what? Yeah, I'll go ahead and set up... I'm not quite at my house rule where I'd have to set up new investigators, but I will... I'm not quite at my house rule where I would call it a game, but I will go ahead and set up 3 new investigators. So I'll have to do that off camera. Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight from the future here. Now I do go ahead and set up the 3 investigators off camera, but this video is starting to get a little bit long. I've hit my limit for how long a video should be at a little over 3 hours. This Reckoning ran very long. But so there will be a part 2 that'll go up later this week, and we'll still play Call of Cthulhu Alone Against the Flames on schedule next week. Thank you for watching part 1 of Eldritch Horror vs. Hastur. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Be sure to also turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.